Hello from England. I make 8-inch squares like this on a round loom for a charity in Africa called Cascare, who arrange for the squares to be sewn together into blankets and then they distribute them to communities who need them. One of the challenges of knitting squares on a round loom is that you have to work out before you start how many pegs you'll need to use and how many rows you'll need to knit. This is because once you've started knitting, the part of the knitting nearest to the pegs is stretched in both directions, both around the pegs and down into the work. So you can't do any accurate measuring as you go along. So in this video I'm going to show quick ways to estimate the pegs and rows necessary to create an 8-inch square. You'll find that different size round looms will have different size spaces between the pegs. So the right number of pegs to produce a square 8 inches wide on the loom I will use, which is the Red Nifty Knitter loom, may not be the right number of pegs on yours. So calculating how many pegs you'll need to use on your own loom to provide a width of 8 inches is to some extent a matter of trial and error. However, you'll get a reasonably accurate result if you do the following. Take your loom with the winding peg facing you and put your tape measure immediately lining up above the winding peg, and then wrap the tape measure round the outside of the loom in an anti-clockwise direction until you find the peg which is nearest to 16 inches, and that should be your final peg. You'll have spotted that using 16 inches as a guide to find your last peg, that 16 inches is exactly double the 8 inches that you want to end up knitting. The number of rows you need to knit to produce an 8-inch square, it depends on the quality of the yarn that you're using, in other words whether it's economy or premium. For my squares I use DK, that's double knitting yarn, which I believe is equivalent to light worsted in the United States and 8-ply in Australia. I found that when I use the economy DK yarn I have to knit 31 rows to achieve 8 inches. With a yarn slightly better quality than that, I only had to knit 28 rows to achieve 8 inches. And on this square, where the quality of the yarn was very high indeed, I only needed to knit 27 rows. You can easily see how many rows you've knitted while the square is on the loom, like this. If you look inside the work, you can see that there are little bars of 2 strands, because you've knitted in 2 strands going up through the work, and those are the rows. So in this case I've done a cast on, that'll be row 1, that'll be row 2, that'll be row 3, that will be row 4, that will be row 5, and that will be row 6. Loom knitting a square is very quick. If you're already an experienced loom knitter and want to make 8-inch squares for the charity Cascare like I do, please also see my video called Loom Knit Squares, Strengthening the Edges. If you're new to loom knitting, you might want to take a look at my video called Create a Flat Panel on a Round Loom. Here are details of both videos. Goodbye and good luck with your loom knitting.